Great.
Okay. Here we go. Come in.
Yes.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see it coming. Microsoft Office, and it's about to open.
Yeah. It's a bit slow though, but why is it not opening?
Right. It will open.
Oh, right.
Okay, it's quite slow. All right, so it's open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
So I'm going to talk about setting up a radiotherapy department in low middle income country and the role of radiotherapy in cancer control planning. I will, my outline presentation will be with an introduction, and then I'll talk about the factors to be considered when setting up a radiotherapy program. I will share with you the recipe for success in setting up a radiotherapy program in low middle income country, especially focusing in Africa and Tanzania specifically. Then I will touch on the role of radiotherapy within the National Cancer Control Program and share with you my experience in setting up a radiotherapy program at the Ocean Road Cancer Institute in Tanzania. Before I start my presentation, I would like to give special thanks to all the people who have been working with me over the last many years. As you can see, the government of Tanzania, the Ocean Road Cancer Institute, and many others. All of these, I say thank you. We're talking about setting up a radiotherapy program in a low middle income country. Most African countries are in that category. Radiotherapy is a multidisciplinary specialty which uses complex equipment, and I mean complex, and radiation sources for delivery of treatment. There are different kinds of sources, but they all emit radiation, which is ionizing and is used to treat cancers. To practice radiotherapy in any country, a license from a national regulatory authority is mandatory. In this, I mean that one has got to be authorized to use ionizing radiation because of the dangers that can arise if ionizing radiations are not used properly. Now, why would one want to have radiotherapy in their country? There are several triggers for setting up a radiotherapy program, and they could be varied. But again, one can look at some of the things that made Tanzania start a radiotherapy program. There was an exodus of patients to other countries for radiotherapy. In other words, when there was no radiotherapy in Tanzania, very few patients decided to travel outside the borders to get treatment. And again, there were bitter complaints from the voters who put the politicians into power that they were missing a treatment which they thought was useful to their conditions. The other thing is long waiting lists, which suggests that there is shortage of radiotherapy, meaning that whatever radiotherapy there is not adequate. Therefore, one has got to think about setting new. Before one starts a radiotherapy practice and get a license to practice radiotherapy, there are several aspects that are usually by the regular. Always okay, and who has applied for a license is going to use ionizing radiation and endanger the patients. Of aspects that can be evaluated could be aspects, could be under medical physics, could be under radiation protection, could be under safety and security measures. It is important that when one is setting up a radiotherapy program, all of the above are carefully considered, because they will be evaluated by the regulatory authority so that one is to practice radiotherapy. When I talk of clinical aspects, in order to ensure safe, high-quality radiotherapy, the clinical factors such as diagnosis, treatment decision making, follow-up must be addressed. And these can only be addressed if there is in place, when the radiotherapy service started, specialized combined assessment clinics, because cancer treatment has got to have a multidisciplinary approach. In other words, not only one discipline can treat cancer effectively. And to do that, whenever and wherever there is a radiotherapy practice, tumor boards, or in other words, they are called multidisciplinary team meetings, have got to be held every week so that cancer patients are treated and decisions are made that will give the cancer patient the chance of getting the best treatment that is available. And also, to be able to do this properly, the radiotherapy program is advised to have management protocols which are made locally and are made in accordance with the resources and skills available. These clinical aspects have got to be taken into account when one is setting up a radiotherapy program, because it's the only way that cancer patients can get the best out of the radiotherapy. When you look at the medical physics aspects, I know there are times when the role of the medical physicist is not very clear, and there are few centers that they do of a full-time radiotherapy medical physicist is a must. And when I say it's a must, I mean it, because without a medical physicist, it becomes very difficult to give radiotherapy. And the medical physicist is necessary when setting up a radiotherapy program, because they will establish and supervise quality assurance procedures, which are very necessary in radiotherapy, and when it comes to delivering treatment, and also when it comes to radiation safety, when it comes to quality control, and also to be able to comply to regulatory authority guidelines. The medical physicist also oversees the maintenance of therapy equipment. And it's important to have preventive maintenance rather than to wait until the machines are broken down and require repair, because that will affect the treatment of patients. The other aspect that is very important, and I must stress it is very important, because we know the side effects of analyzing radiations. We know what happened after the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So using ionizing radiation, one has got to have radiation protective aspects in place. You see, if appraised by regulatory authority means that compliance with radiation protection is not met. So if you're going to invest to construct a facility which you will not use because you have not complied to the national regulatory authority as far as radiation protection is concerned, this is a waste of resources, and it is not desirable in countries which are struggling with a lot of other problems. So to avoid having problems with radiation protection aspects, one thing that middle-income countries can do is to have 2 stages put in place. One, if you're going to set a radiotherapy, you would have information facility that, and also the description of the that you're going to use, and the radiation and the National Radiation Authority about the managerial organization, arrangements, training, the personnel that will be operating the procedures, so that they are aware of what kind of radiotherapy program you are planning to have, and if they have any advice you ahead of time. Without training, without training personnel, there is no way a radiotherapy program will take off. The second stage is another application for a license after completion of the construction and also after commissioning, after the equipment has been installed. This is an application for use of the facility staff. Using integration you have here, and its safety and security aspects have helped us to be able to use ionized radiation safely for treating pain. The operation of a radiotherapy.
Hello, Professor Twalib. Hello.
Requires safety protocol. There has to be a program in place that addresses safety issues. And also, there has to be about, like say, sources. These security measures should be endorsed by the regulatory authority. And Yes, yes, you. Yeah. Hear me? Hello.
Yes, yes. We can hear you, but it's keeping it's not so clear. I don't know.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yeah, but it's not so clear. It's not so clear. I was wondering if you could use
It's
your
not so clear. Maybe it's a network problem. Could be a network problem.
hello, Professor Twalib. Okay. Okay. Hello, Professor Twalib.
Yes.
Oh, great. We can hear you now. It's clearer now.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was talking about safety and security aspects and stressing that to have a radiotherapy practice going on, one needs to have a safety program and security measures which are evaluated and endorsed by the regulatory authority. Another thing is the radiotherapy program should have a qualified staff appointed as a radiation protection or safety officer, and this person should be given clear definition of responsibilities as a radiation protection officer or safety officer. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
You hear me? I'm trying to push this forward, but okay. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't seem to be able to move the slides.
Yeah. Okay.
Something is not working properly here. Let's see. Can I do here? Okay.
In that case,
Has left.
let me share the screen then.
Mm-hmm.
Let me share the screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Why is it not showing?
Can you see my screen?
So, I have the screen, but I haven't seen the. Okay. I can see your screen now.
Yes. So,
Okay.
are we here, right?
So, are you going to move the slides for me? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Is this the next slide, or
Yes.
is it
What's the next class slide?
the one before this one? Can I see the one before this one?
Okay.
Okay. We were talking about the security and aspects. Now, next slide.
Done.
Next slide, because going back. Okay, next.
It was on slide 8 or 9.
Okay. That's before this one, right?
Yeah.
8 or 9. This is 11.
We go now.
Okay.
Okay.
This one, right?
No.
Okay.
Slide
Let's go
8.
to the one before that.
Yes.
We have not gotten
Okay.
there. We were on slide 8.
Okay, in that case, let me just go completely all the way.
This is still the same slide, and we go back. It's going forward. Let's go to yeah, let's go back. They've been going forwards.
Okay, this is 1, 2. Here.
Yeah, this is okay.
Yes.
Go back one more. Okay. So once you have looked at all those aspects, I would like now to tell you that after, okay, this is back again. Let's go forward now, 12. It's the same, go forward. Another one forward. So it's 12 now because we're halfway almost, and I'll rush now so that I finish. Next slide. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Next. Or can I try also if I can move from here?
No, it may not be easy. I have to make you a presenter.
Next, 12 now.
Okay.
Let me try again. Maybe I'll be able to move to let me see if I can. Wow.
I think we can just continue from here while you speak, and then I move it.
Yeah. Then the recipe for success is when one is planning to set up a radiotherapy, there's got to be systematic, comprehensive process of planning of radiotherapy at the national level. In other words, if you're thinking of having a facility in a country, the national level should be involved. And this should also take into account the regulatory infrastructure for radiation protection and for other centers, about equipment, staff, education programs, and the issue of quality assurance and sustainability aspect. In other words, there has got to be a realistic budgetary and cost considerations, because once the facility is up and running, to be sustainable, there are some cost consideration. But for low and middle income country, political will and commitment are very important, because without those, very little gets done, and priorities, radiotherapy is not going to be one of the priorities. The next thing is one has got to have staff trained, and training, if you're just starting for the first time, training should start 2 or 3 years before radiotherapy infrastructure development. The other thing that is very important, and I would like to stress this, is that we are going to procure a lot of equipment, and the tendering process should be very transparent. One should make sure that equipment which is bought is giving value for the money, and this can only be done if there is transparent tendering process. The other thing is when it comes to hiring people who will work in the radiotherapy program, say radiation oncologists, medical physicists, technicians, protection officers, and oncology nurses, maintenance engineers, one has got to have staff that are qualified professionals, that have had proper training, and that will be able to deliver as per their certificates. The other thing is to make sure that there is a culture of quality assurance and quality control in the radiotherapy program. This is very important for radiotherapy. Once all those are in place, the chance that one is going to succeed and one is going to set up a radiotherapy department in low and middle income countries is very high, because you have the political commitment, you have the resources, you have the human resources, and you have taken care of the aspects that are important to have a radiotherapy department up and running. You have looked at the protection, radiation protection aspects adequately, and the National Regulatory Authority will give you a license. Now, radiotherapy is just one of the treatment modalities for cancer, and the role of radiotherapy within a national cancer control program is very important. The optimal yield of radiotherapy services occurs when radiotherapy is integrated into effective healthcare system. It has to be in the healthcare system. It's not going to be a stand-alone thing. And it has to be in a place where there is a functional national cancer control plan so that it can be integrated with other components of national cancer control. And the reason for this is that if there is no national cancer control plan, like in most African countries, cancer patients often present with advanced stages because there is no preventive measures taken, there is no screening, and diagnosis is not made in timely. So you have patients coming into the hospital with advanced stage disease, and the majority of these are treated for palliation. And if you use your radiotherapy for palliation only, this is not cost effective, and the resources so spent are not well utilized. The components of National Cancer Control Program: prevention, early detection, treatment, this is where radiotherapy falls in, and palliative care, which can also use radiotherapy to palliate those advanced cancers. So radiotherapy is one of the main treatment modalities for cancer, and it fits very well in the National Cancer Control Program under the component of treatment. When you have radiotherapy, you can use it alone to treat cancer patients. For example, in early stage prostate cancer, in which most patients are cured, or in combination with surgery and chemotherapy, as in breast cancer, cervix cancer, and lung cancer. So you can use it in combination or alone. Radiotherapy provides excellent local tumor control, which is not always achievable with surgery. It preserves normal form and function. For example, radiotherapy for larynx cancer allows laryngeal conservation, an important factor contributing to quality of life and ability to return to work after treatment. If a teacher was to have laryngectomy, it means they will not be able to go back to work. We need their voice to earn a living. And then another thing is radiotherapy, incorporation of radiotherapy into multimodal management of breast cancer or limb sarcomas makes mastectomy, which can be mutilating at times, or amputation, unnecessary. So conservative surgery can be done when radiotherapy is given to reduce the tumor. Radiotherapy is also a powerful instrument in palliation of symptoms associated with cancer. Why do we think we need to set up a radiotherapy program in low middle income countries? I'll look at Africa as an example and just share with you that currently out of the 52 African countries, only half of these have radiotherapy services. The rest do not have any radiotherapy programs in place. And even in those 23 countries, South Africa and Egypt account for 60% of all the radiotherapy machines. So you find that other countries have very little, one machine or at most two machines. According to the UN report in July 2017, the world population is projected to reach almost 10 billion in 2050 and 11.2 billion in 2100. The current population is 7.6 billion, and is expected to increase to 8.6 in 2030, which is not very far away. And Africa is the main contributor of the population growth. This means that the need for radiotherapy will increase as more and more cancers are diagnosed as a result of increasing population. For this reason, therefore, Africa have no choice other than to start setting up radiotherapy program and making this as a priority, because there is already unmet need and this is going to increase. Of course, I know that some people might think that setting up radiotherapy program, especially for Africa, is very expensive. But I would like to remind people in Africa that every accomplishment, if you want to accomplish anything, it starts with the decision to try. So we have got to decide to try. It is possible, and I can see Africa setting up radiotherapy programs if there is the will and the commitment. I will share with you what my experience in Tanzania has been. I have been in Tanzania, working in Tanzania, and have been involved in setting up a radiotherapy program at the Ocean Road Cancer Institute. Tanzania is quite a big country. Having one radiotherapy center on the eastern coast is not adequate, but we had to have a starting point, and we decided to start our radiotherapy program in Dar es Salaam at the Ocean Road Cancer Institute. The Ocean Road Cancer Institute is more than 100 years old, and it is the main center for radiotherapy in the country, and new centers now are coming up, but still that is where radiotherapy services began, and that's where the training for radiotherapy and oncology in general is done. When we were starting radiotherapy program in Tanzania, there were a lot of challenges. We had lack of resources, and these are mainly financial resources, human resources, infrastructural resources. We had no buildings suitable for installing radiation machines. So we started from scratch. We had to see how we can get the political will, get the political commitment, and also to be able to make a justification for the government to invest in radiotherapy. As I'm talking to you today, at the Ocean Road Cancer Institute, they have 4 megavoltage bankers with 1 LINAC and 3 cobalt machines, and 1 banker which is ready will probably house another LINAC. We have a banker for digital X-ray of a voltage unit. We have treatment planning room. I'm talking to you about this because these are the basic equipments that when one is setting up a radiotherapy program will need to have. We still at Ocean Road have the basics. So sharing with you with this means that I'm telling you what a basic radiotherapy program should have. There should be a treatment planning room with computerized treatment planning system, a simulator room. There should be 8 consultation. There should be consultation rooms for radiation oncologists. We have 8 at the moment. There should be dosimetry planning physicist rooms, and you should also have high dose rate brachytherapy bankers. We have 2, and these are high dose rate cobalt 60 brachytherapy after loading machines. With that kind of after loading machine, you have to have an X-ray C-arm to be able to take X-rays when the sources have been inserted. You should have beam measurement and quality assurance, radiation protection, physics equipment. A simulator that we have is not a computer, but we have a city. We have patient immobilization devices, and very important, quality assurance physics equipment. These are the things that when you are setting up a radiotherapy department, you should aim to have, because they're very basic, and you cannot talk of having a radiotherapy program without having this. The treatment planning team, immobilization, and a full range of applicators. For you to be able to run a radiotherapy program, you need to have staff. You need to have patients. At the Ocean Road Cancer Institute, we have 25 oncologists. We have 16 clinical oncology residents. I might confuse you because we are thinking of radiation oncology, but we decided that in Tanzania, we would treat oncologists which are trained in both medical oncology and radiation oncology because of the shortages that we have and we are facing. We have 3 medical physicists, 35 radiotherapy technicians, 3 oncology nurses, and we have other supporting staff that are non-oncology, but they are trained as nurses, they are trained as X-ray technicians, they are administrators, they are also medical attendants, and at Ocean we have about 200 non-oncology trained staff. We have 1 maintenance engineer, and we have a facility, a building with a bed capacity of 300 cancer patients. If you have a radiotherapy program, you have to have a place where cancer patients will be admitted, whether it's a hostel, whether it's a ward, but most cancer patients come from far and they will need to be in the hospital during their treatment. So if one is to set up a radiotherapy program, one has got to observe the things that the National Regulatory Authority will evaluate and make sure they are in place. One has got to make sure there is radiation protection to the general public, to the staff, and to the patients. And one must make sure that there is safety in using the ionizing radiation, and there are security measures that any radiation sources will not be stolen, misplaced, or misused. And also, finally, the staff. The role of a medical physicist in a radiotherapy department is very important. And I would like to stress that in my experience, I don't see how I could have run a radiotherapy service without the assistance and the constant help of a medical physicist. In conclusion, no effort to make radiotherapy accessible in low middle income country or Africa for that matter is too big. One shouldn't look at these investments as big, because if you look at other things that you are investing on, I mean, they are a lot more expensive than radiotherapy. For example, Tanzania, just these 2-3 months, we bought 4 planes. If you look at the cost of that, we would have built 10 radiotherapy units. So there isn't any investment which is too large to save cancer patients. We should invest so that we can give our patients the best of the care within the borders of our countries. With political will and commitment, allocate funds for radiotherapy, it's possible to successfully set up and sustain radiotherapy programs in Africa. With this, I would like now to open up a discussion. And my first discussion is, if you are starting a radiotherapy program and you want to buy equipment, and you are from a lower middle income country, and the equipment is a mega voltage machine, and you have a choice between a LMIC and a cobalt 6, you think are important to consider so that you can make a decision to buy one of the two. If you're not, well, if you don't have resources to buy both. Okay?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we heard your question, sir. So
do you hear me? I finished my presentation, and yes.
Yes. So the question is the choice between a cobalt 60 machine and a linear accelerator for a low income country. I don't know if anybody wants to contribute.
Because these are the decisions that one has got to make.
Yes. Okay. Let me just say something, my own contribution. I think that has been a very, very big challenge in the choice of what mega voltage machine to choose. From my own experience, sorry, not really physical experience, but at least from my study and my communication with experts in it. Typically, the cobalt 60 machine is usually stronger, more robust, has more horsepower, may be able to take up the work that is peculiar to low and middle income countries. But again, that's one advantage of it, and it has longevity. It has more years. A typical cobalt 60 could last as long as 15 years, 20 years. But a linear accelerator may not last that much. So typically a linear accelerator, one, is more expensive, and then typically lasts maybe 10, 12 years. If we have maintenance in place, it's also more expensive to maintain. But however, when it comes to quality of treatment, I think the linear accelerator is superior to the cobalt 60. Although we now have difficulties with that question, because we understand that there are some linear accelerators now that could be as strong and have the same capacity as a cobalt 60 machine, and there are some and so it has all the advantage of a linear accelerator as well as that of a cobalt 60. And then there are some cobalt 60 as well that are increasingly as capable of delivering the same quality with a linear accelerator. So I think ultimately it depends on the center, their budget, and what they envisage and what they plan to get from the machine. So that's my contribution.
I think I concur with you, actually.
Okay. So would anybody want to say something to that, or do you have any more questions?
Can you hear me? This is Dennis Palmer from Cameroon.
Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Dennis. Thank you.
We are in the beginning stage designing a system, and the consultants that we're working with have strongly suggested that we try to install a linear accelerator. There are a lot of challenges in terms of infrastructure. I think the most important thing that we've considered is the maintenance issues, but we have someone in country who has advanced training in this type of equipment, and we hope that they will be able to help us to sustain this service.
Yeah. Yes, true.
Well, I think if you are happy and that you'll get an engineer to come and help with the maintenance of the machine, there's no problem with that. But experience has shown that most LMICs in Africa have a very high downtime. They are not working most of the time. when you compare them with Cobalt 60. And one wonders whether is it just having a machine, or is it having a machine that can give service to patients. And one has got to look at the mix of cancer patients that one has, and the stages at presentation, and the intention of treatment. If you have 80% of your patients, when they come to see you, requiring palliative treatment, and only 20% that would be considered for radical treatment, then it means that with a Cobalt 60 machine, you can handle 80% of your patients adequately, and you might not need even a LMIC accelerator for those patients, because even in places where they have both LMIC and Cobalt 60, they would still treat the very palliative patients with a Cobalt 60 machine.
Yes. Okay. We have another question. We have a question from Adeniji. So her question is the payment of radiotherapy in Tanzania covered by health insurance or out of pocket? Is it covered by?
Well, yeah. You see, when I was working with the government, and I argued with the government that radiotherapy is very expensive, and if we need to make the people be able to access it, there's no way they can pay. So radiotherapy is given free, paid for by the government. And for those patients who have got national health insurance coverage, the National Health Insurance Fund pays for their treatment. But if you can come to the Ocean Road Cancer Institute, there is no fee charged on cancer patients. Most Tanzanians are poor, and if you wanted them to pay, it means that you are not going to treat them because they will not be able to pay. So we have a policy that exempts cancer patients from paying for service.
Okay. So in the Ocean Road Clinic, what about, I know there is, I don't know if there's any private radiotherapy facility in Tanzania, but what if there was a private facility?
Yes, there are.
Oh, there are. So would the government still pay for people to go to private?
No, the National Health Insurance Fund would pay, but the government would say, if you want a free treatment, you go to the Ocean Road, and then you will meet a waiting list there. So, but if you have an insurance, the insurances, whether they are private or they are government insurances, they pay for radiotherapy in the private clinics.
Okay.
I have a question.
All right. Please go on with your question, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much. My name is Kingsley in Seattle. I'm just curious, since the government pays for patients in Ocean Road Clinic, is there like a long wait time? For example, if a woman needs to get radiotherapy right now, how long does she need to wait? Because I will assume that since there are private centers, people that have money would go there. Like, you know, the only way that those businesses will thrive is if they get faster service. So what is the wait time, and how does this delay affect, you know, cancer progression in patients?
Now, as I'm talking, the waiting time is a bit long. It can go up to 4-6 weeks. And the private radiotherapy facility do not have many patients. As a matter of fact, they don't have any waiting list. The thing is, they don't have, the patients cannot afford to go there because of the cost of radiotherapy. And we have another government radiotherapy facility, which is near the Lake Victoria. So these two work together, but there is still a waiting list, and this means that more radiotherapy facilities have got to be established. As you remember, when patients are not given treatment on time, and that is not desirable. Therefore, you need to increase the programs, the facilities. In our National Cancer Control Program, we had planned that we would have, initially, we would have 6 government radiotherapy centers. And these would cover different areas of the country. The funding for the National Cancer Control Program has not been as requested. So up to now, you have, I would say, 2 working, and another one in Kilimanjaro, which is almost in the final stages of being commissioned.
Thank you. So someone asks, says, this is from VanCube. It says, please, is there a difference in services between the Cobalt 60 and the linear accelerator in the services they can deliver?
Yes, there is a difference, because you see, Cobalt has 1 energy and it's equivalent to 4 MV LINAC. But LINACs could have varying energies, and they could also have an electron option. So if you have a patient that requires electrons, it means you can treat this patient better with a LINAC than with a Cobalt 60. If you have a patient that would need higher energies than 4 MV, then it means that because LINACs have varying energies, you can treat that patient better with a LINAC. And then technological advances in radiotherapy over the last 20 years has been tremendous. And most of the advances were in the LINACs. If you talk of IMRT, IGRT, and whatever, these are things that are readily available in LINACs, more so than in Cobalt. Although there are Cobalt 60 machines nowadays with multi-leaf collimators, and also which can give services like LINACs, but these are very few, and most of the Cobalt 60 machines in use in Tanzania, the old ones, and in Africa in general, are the old types that don't have these facilities. There is no question about LINACs being superior in some aspects than Cobalt 60, but one has got to take into account the cost and the benefit for whatever decision they make, because treating patients with LINACs is more expensive than treating patients with Cobalt 60. So if you have little resources, it makes a lot of sense to use those resources so that more patients can get treatment rather than treat a few patients.
Sure. Okay. So, sir, one more thing. Typically, have you? What about the use of fairly used linear accelerators and Cobalt 60? I know some countries go into that. They buy fairly used equipment. What do you have to say about that?
My personal experience, even I might be biased, but I would not, because a used LINAC or a used Cobalt machine that has been decommissioned will need a lot of maintenance. And this is something that is not readily available in our countries. So it comes, it works for 2 months, and then it's just a white elephant in a room, because even the spares for these old machines are not readily available. And when you contact the suppliers, they will always tell you, oh, you know, these parts are not in stock because this machine has been phased out. So it's kind of like tricky, and you may not get a good return on an investment buying a second-hand machine. I don't think buying a second-hand treatment machine is different from buying a second-hand car that has been used and that has had an accident, and you buy it, but you might end up using more money servicing and maintaining that car than buying a new one. If you are starting to set up a radiotherapy program, my advice is raise the resources to get a new one that you can use for more than 15 years.
Thank you. So what's the average? We have a question.
Comment.
Okay, yes, please say.
Yeah, my name is Ernest Okonkwo. I'm a medical physicist here based in Germany. I just wanted to comment on the question that was asked on cobalt 60 versus LINAC. I think there's always, this discussion has always been there, you know, and there's always that narrative or tendency that African countries, they should go for LINAC and cobalt 60, which I really don't understand why, because cobalt 60 is an old technology, it's completely absolute. You know, so I think just as the professor showed in his presentation, what is important in radiotherapy is good planning. If you are setting up a radiotherapy program, you have to plan well. You have to take into account all the various parameters and components that entails setting up a good radiotherapy program. And one of those things is energy. But if you have people involved who are not trained, or you don't have the professionals, then you have problems with power shortages and all the like, you know. So my take is that if you look at cobalt 60, you can use cobalt 60 to treat things like head and neck cancers. You can use it to treat superficial located tumors, and it's not really adequate for deep-seated tumors. And you also have the disadvantage of decreasing output. And also the disposal of the decay source is also a problem. So which also comes into the radiation protection aspect. You know, so for my own opinion, I think the most important thing is a good planning. If the people who are in charge of planning, if they set up a good radiotherapy therapy program, putting every important component, I think the problem with power shortages is not going to be any issue, and also maintenance. And most vendors have produced LINACs with just one energy that are suitable for such low middle income countries. So I don't see any reason why African countries should be entertaining the idea of cobalt 60. I mean, for high dose rates, for brachytherapy, it's good, but not for extended beam. You know, for external beam, I don't think it's a good idea.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ernest. A question here from Bolanley. What is the average working hours for staff in Ocean Road Center? Do you work shift?
We have two shifts here.
Okay.
The one that starts in the morning and finishes at 2, and another one that starts at 2 and finishes at 9.
Oh, thank you. And what is the average cost of treatment in private centers in Tanzania for curative, say 4 to 6 weeks treatment?
They would charge very expensive, in that treatment planning is charged separately, and that would be like 2,000 US dollars. And then they would charge about $500 per treatment, fraction a day, that is per day. So if you have 30 days, 30 treatments, it's 500 times 30.
Wow.
So for Tanzanians, that is very, very expensive.
Yeah, 500 Tanzanian dollars.
No, that's US dollars.
US dollars.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's more expensive than cancer treatments in the US.
Exactly. But then they would say that because the numbers of patients they have, it will take more than 20 years for them to recover the money that they have spent in buying this machine.
I have a question. Sorry to butt in.
Yeah. Please go on.
So we have in Tanzania, we have the government, the Ocean Road Clinic radiotherapy program. And then then you have the private entities. What are the drivers that will make people leave a free program and spend tons of money in a private place? And if it's more expensive than getting the treatment here in the US or in other, European countries, like why would the patient spend that much, like go to those places when there's a free option and there are cheaper options outside the country?
One is, okay, that's why you have patients traveling to India and they say they can pay the ticket, they can stay in a hotel in India, they can get the radiotherapy, and it's going to be cheaper than getting it in Tanzania. You see, the private radiotherapy in Tanzania is owned by what we call investors. They have come into the country, they're not Tanzanians, they have invested their money and they want a return on their money, and so I think because they have just started, as time goes on, maybe the prices will go down, or they will be out of business because they don't have customers. Yeah.
So for a radiotherapy facility to be able to recoup its cost and sustain itself, it has at least a certain volume of patients it must treat per annum. And so if they can't make up that volume, they have to increase.
They cannot make that volume. There is no way they can make that volume. There is no way. Because as the previous speaker said, what are the incentive of going to pay your money when you can go to this government facility and get treatment? Okay, the private facility would boast that they have a better LMIC. They would boast that their facility is not congested, and probably they'll boast that they have more expertise. But whenever you are in business, you try to say the things that will make you a bit different from others, but whether that is true or not, because nobody has evaluated their treatment results versus the treatment results of Ocean Road. And if the kind of patient they see are male palliative, I don't think there is any gain there in saying you have a better machine.
Yes. Okay, and I think that actually worsens it also, because since less patients are coming, they have to charge the few patients coming more, and so it increases the cost of their treatment as well. Okay, this is a question from Akintayo. Is there maintenance agreement with vendors apart from the warranty on your therapy machines?
Yes. When we bought the Lina, there is a 5 years maintenance agreement that was factored into the cost of the machine. For the Cobalt machines, these are old machines. They were bought more than 10 years ago. The warranties have expired, and now we have an arrangement for any engineer, a local engineer or somebody from outside, from Theratronics, to come and service the machine. So there is a service agreement, but not the one that we used when we bought the machines.
Okay, so we'll just take 2 more questions. The first one is from Kingsley Undo, and he said, okay, this was He said, you said there's something more expensive than the radiotherapy setup itself. He didn't hear that part because of connection issue. What is more expensive in planning your radiotherapy than the setup itself? Than the capital cost or something?
Let me kind of explain. Thank you, Credit. So during your presentation, you said that there are other costs that is even more expensive than the acquisition of the machine, and you said it was like 10 times more than the acquisition. So I was just curious to know, because I think you mentioned it, but it was not a clear connection when you did.
You see, once you have bought the machine, you will use about 10 to 15% per year for maintaining that machine. Okay?
Yes.
That is, you have to budget for that. That preventive maintenance, or even if there is the electricity surge and the machine is broken down, 15% is the minimum of what you are going to use per annum to maintain that machine. So every year like that, you have to have that money to be able to have the machine up and running.
Yes.
And you need to have that money. So it's not just the upfront money to buy the machine.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's also the recurring
expenditure.
So, and the government has got to have that money, otherwise the machine is not going to work.
Which is why the government must factor it in their yearly budget. So it's not just like a one-time thing that you say, okay, we've installed the radiotherapy facility. It happens once, and then you have to factor it in your recurring budget every year.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So unfortunately, this would be our last question, and it's from Bolanle. Okay, Bolanle is asking here. It says, what's the average number of patients you treat at Ocean Road?
Per day at Ocean Road, we treat about 100, 150 patients.
That's 100 or 150 fractions of radiotherapy delivered.
Yeah, but okay. It depends on the setup, but I'm talking about patients. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4 patients. If you have 3 fields, if you have 2 fields, if you have 1 field, that it's a patient and a patient.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So on a whole, in a whole year, how many cancer patients do you say you treat with radiotherapy for the whole year?
About 6,000, between around 6,000. It varies a bit up and down, but 6,000.
Great. But I used to see estimates in literature that says the average linear accelerator or Cobalt 60 machine, and that's what is often used in analysis. So this is where I get some confusion, because I'm doing a lot of work on this, on the economic side and global health side of radiation oncology. So the literature actually states that a linear accelerator or a Cobalt machine can treat an average of about 450 to 800 patients per year. And then I often hear African countries say they treat 3,000, 4,000 patients, and this is 6,000 and so on. I've heard the same thing from other centers. How exactly is that possible, and how is that different from? Why is that different from what's obtainable in literature?
Yeah. Because look here, if you have 4 machines and you treat 6,000 patients, it's like 1,500 patients per machine. But you are overworking your machines. They don't rest.
Yes.
Whereas in Europe, your machines can be working only for 3 or 4 hours a day.
Wow.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The wear and tear of machines in Africa is very high, because they are being operated more hours, sometimes even on weekends.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Twalib.
I also thank you very much, and I thank everybody who has contributed to this topic.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So you can forward your questions to Professor Twalib. If you have any question, you can just send me an email, and I will give you his email so you can ask him directly and speak to him directly after today's class. I pretty well know that the network today was very poor. I'll see what I can do. Yeah, it wasn't so good. We had network hitches. I'll see what I can do about the video and see if we can have a clearer version of it.
I don't know why it's clear now, but before that it was not as clear as now.
Yes, it wasn't clear. And I'm happy I forwarded the lecture slides before the class, so everyone could just have been opening it and reading it. All right. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And bye.
Bye.